as we continue to also receive our guests who are coming for this event this afternoon. I want to ask you to feel at home as we are about to start. Let our guests come in as we are set to begin the function this afternoon. May I request you kindly to stand up as we sing the national anthems, please.
Afrika Mashariki tuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Makerere, Makerere, we build for the future, the great Makerere. Great, great and mighty the walls around thee. Great, great and mighty the gates beside thee. Great, great and mighty the walls around thee. Great, great and mighty the gates beside thee. From east and west, from north and south, all voices singing arise. Makerere, rise up and rise, high up and high. All voices singing arise. Makerere, Makerere, Makerere. We build for the future, the great Makerere. Great, great and mighty the walls around thee. Great, great and mighty the gates beside thee. Great, great and mighty the walls around thee. Great, great and mighty the gates beside thee. Do not forget through all the years those who have gone through the gates of Makerere. Give them the pride, give them the joy, all to remember the gates of Makerere. Makerere, Makerere, we build for the future, the great Makerere. Great, great and mighty the walls around thee. Great, great and mighty the gates beside thee. Great, great and mighty the walls around thee. Great, great and mighty the gates beside thee. Those who hear thee, seek ye the truth. Build for the future the great Makerere. Those he have been, those he will be. Build for the future the great Makerere. Makerere, Makerere. We build for the future the great Makerere. Great, great and mighty the walls around thee. Great, great and mighty the gates beside thee. Great, great and mighty the walls around thee. Great, great and mighty the gates beside thee.
Thank you very much, our performing arts, for that wonderful anthems you have sung. Sister, can you come here and lead us into a short prayer? Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Those who are just joining us. Please, let's pray together as we begin this occasion.
Let us humble ourselves and we pray in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. God, Abba Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, we thank you so much for the gift of life. We thank you so much for having enabled us to be here as one family. We thank you for the organizers of this great event. Lord, we ask you that as we begin, we ask for your wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, that the work that has been begun now may bear abundant fruits. And we ask for the success of this lecture. as the time comes for us to leave this place, we also ask for your journey mercies, blessings, and graces upon each member present here. We have asked all this in the name of Jesus Christ, your Son. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you very much, sister, for that opening prayer. Our chief guest this afternoon, the U.S. Ambassador to Uganda, Ambassador Brown, and all the members from the U.S. mission in Uganda, the chair and members of council of Makerere University, the representative of the VC, the DVC, and members of top management of Makerere University, distinguished invited guests from sister institutions, my colleague staff of Makerere University, our dear gallant students of Makerere University, the students from Makerere College School that are here with us, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third Kajubi Memorial Lecture this afternoon. But like I mentioned earlier, we are in a 3-in-1 event this afternoon. The beauty of it all is that the three things which we have come to do here this afternoon are related. They all amount to one thing: celebration. The three things we have come to do this afternoon amount to one thing: celebration. I know you are asking in your mind, what are we celebrating this afternoon? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say, one, we are continuing to commemorate Makerere at 100. We are continuing to celebrate Makerere at 100. We are only not proud that Makerere has made 100 years of vivid existence, but we are all nostalgic about the contribution of Makerere in the transformation of our nation and the region in the last 100 years that Makerere has existed. Makerere hoye. So this afternoon we are there to celebrate Makerere at 100. But the second thing we are celebrating this afternoon is the life of an icon in this country. We are celebrating the life of an icon in this country. Professor Kajubi may not be in this room right now physically, but Professor Kajubi is in our lives in this country for what he did when he was alive. The good thing is that Professor Kajubi is a Makererian, like many of us. Professor Kajubi studied here as a student, but Professor Kajubi was also a staff here and a vice chancellor of Makerere 2 times, between 1977 and 1979, and between 1990 and 1993. It is worth celebrating Kajubi's life, and I say he's an icon because his footprints on our education landscape cannot be erased, I think, forever. And so, this afternoon we are celebrating the life of Kajubi. Another third activity that has brought us here this afternoon is to celebrate a very special relationship, I should say. The relationship between two countries, two great countries, the United States of America and Uganda. This relationship is enshrined in the internationalization of education in this country and in the United States of America. Through the Fulbright scholarship, the US has been able to provide opportunity for Ugandans and other people from across the world to travel to the USA to further their education, and also people from the USA to come to our country to exchange knowledge and ideas. And this has boosted internationalization of education. Why this relationship is very important to celebrate today is that the late Professor Senteza Kajubi was the first African to receive the Fulbright scholarship to go to the USA. In 1952, the first Fulbright scholar is the person we are celebrating too. So you can see that these three things are actually one. And they all amount to celebration. We are celebrating Makerere at 100. We are celebrating the life of an icon. And we are celebrating a relationship that Kajubi started for Africa and for Uganda in terms of the Fulbright scholarship. And so it is a great day. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, the mood in which you walked into the room does not show that we are coming for celebration. So can you change your mood immediately into a celebratory mood? Okay? Into a celebratory mood. Okay? Yes. Into a celebratory mood. We are here to celebrate. And so I want to ask you to feel at home here at Makerere. Okay? May I take this opportunity at this juncture to invite the principal of the College of Education to come and make his opening remarks at the third Kajubi Memorial Lecture. Professor, you are welcome.
Your Excellency, the U.S. Ambassador to Uganda, the Chairperson Council, University Council, the Vice Chancellor and your deputies, Academic, Finance and Administration, members of University Council, members of Makerere University top management and other line management, vice chancellors from other sister universities, our keynote speaker, Dr. Michael, the family of the late Professor William Senteza Kajubi, faculty and students of all generations from 1922 to date, if you are still alive, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Today, the mother of all faculties in Makerere is celebrating. Makerere rose from a small vocational technical college housed at the College of Education in 1922. My college, Dr. Nen, has listed what we are celebrating, but he forgot another very important celebration we are making today as the College of Education. And I think we've been pivotal in spearheading things. We are celebrating the very first female chair council of Makerere University, Rona Magara, who happens to be a member and a student from our college. Madam, you are welcome. It is your college today which is spearheading the celebration. As we celebrate 100 years of Makerere, we celebrate a great man, and also celebrate great men and women who have not only gone through the gates of Makerere, but have been citadels of academic and social achievement for our country and beyond. Professor Senteza Kajubi has many other names. One of them is the Kajubi Report 1989, the Government White Paper 1992. Those are his other names. It's very hard for any student in Uganda doing education to cite anything to do with education without quoting Kajubi Report 1989 and the White Paper, which coincidentally, the White Paper on Education for Sustainable Development is very much skewed to the NRM 10-point programs. So Kajubi was tasked with expounding the NRM 10-point programs, but in education. As we commemorate the third Professor Kajubi Memorial Lecture, we are privileged to have partnered with the US Mission to celebrate and remember this African icon, the very first African Fulbright scholar. In 1954, when Pope Leo the 10th was toying with an idea of ordaining a first African Catholic bishop, who came to be the late Joseph Kiwanuka, Emeritus Archbishop of Kampala Archdiocese. He told him, young man, young priest, if you succeed as a bishop, you'll pave way for many other African bishops. Because by then, Africa never had a bishop, Roman Catholic, south of the Sahara. Fortunately, Kiwanuka succeeded. We now have over 100 Roman Catholic bishops. Likewise, though no one told Kajubi that if you go to the States and you don't take drugs, you come back as an academic, you pave way for many other African Fulbright scholars. And I think that's why we are celebrating him. He never got lost in the States. He came back, and as such, he did not only teach here in Makerere, he became a vice chancellor for 2 consecutive terms. Today, our college dances and pivots on our claim of this great Fulbright gentleman. And this raises a number of thoughts for reflection for all of us, not only in the College of Education, which is, by the way, the prime leading teacher training institute, not only in Uganda, but East and Central Africa. We still have the Sentezas, not only in our college, but in the entire university and region. Each one of us who works in Makerere, let us ask ourselves, can we measure in the footprint of Senteza? Number 2, as we celebrate 100 years, what can we put in place, both in the university education, specifically teacher education in Uganda, to nurture academics and alumni of a similar caliber? Did academic giants end with Senteza? And I'm greatly challenged as the head of this institute, College of Education. When I look myself in the mirror, do I measure to this giant? Or I'm just a cosmetic paper called a professor, but in reality, we usually say a one-day professor. Today, as we listen to the keynote address, let us reflect upon the personal Professor William Senteza Kajubi and his contribution to education as a whole. Senteza, having studied in USA, had his mentors and motivation. Some of us have not had a chance to go to America. We are trained in Europe. What have we brought back to Makerere to show our footprint? Some of us may never have a chance to go abroad. What can we do to nurture others? I take this honor to thank my predecessor, Professor Fred Masakazi. Could stand up for recognition. He's the one who initiated this annual lectures. But of course today, as we celebrate 100 years, I take the credit because I'm the one in the kitchen, I'm the one cooking. I also thank the staff of the College of Education who have organized this particular occasion. But of course in our culture, Your Excellency, we have a proverb which says, it is the king who takes the credit. Even if all others work, it is the king who takes the credit. I take the credit. But again, I can't take the credit. The Vice Chancellor takes the credit. But again, he can't take the credit. Chair Council takes the what? The credit. Because she provides the enabling environment. But also she cannot take credit. The Minister of Education and Government takes the credit. Because I'm very sure during Professor Senteza Kajubi's first tenure of office, there were very many bullets running around and dead bodies flying around. But I doubt whether anyone is going to come and throw a dead body around. I want to thank the family of Professor William Senteza Kajubi for accepting to partner with the College of Education and Makerere to celebrate their own. For us, we are remembering his achievement. But for them, probably we are rekindling tears in their eyes, remembering their dad, their grandfather, and so forth. I want to thank Chairperson Council. And as I said, we are also celebrating her. As we celebrate 100 years, we may not have a chance to mention it. The first female Chairperson Council from our college. And I think when I say that, all the goodies which come with Mark at 100 will come to us, buses, computers, and so forth. And I think my staff should be happy with that. I want to thank the Vice Chancellor, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe. We appreciate his good leadership. When we approached him, he said it is long overdue to celebrate Senteza. We thank him and his deputies. At the moment, he's represented by Professor Umar Kakumba. Professor, please, when you go back, tell him he's at our heart. And I want to report him to Chairperson Council. He's such a bad man that when you want to go to his office, you don't have to make an appointment. You just jump in, even if he's taking a cup of tea, he says, no, don't mind. I'll continue taking as I listen. So I'm reporting him to you that he's such a bad man, he doesn't make appointments. I also want to report the deputy VC academic. He has also learned from his boss. And for him, it's even worse. We ring him at midnight. He just says, hey, Mugaga, what's the problem? Has the wife chased away from the home? But, so that is the team which is heading us. We thank you for that. I want to thank staff of Makerere who gave us ideas here and there. Thank you very much. I want to thank also the keynote speaker, Dr. Michael. I beg, the other name is either Pipenger, but you see names are very tricky. And here in our culture, in African culture, misspelling a name could spell doom. For example, I'm called Mugaga. When you remove a double G and put the G in the middle, it becomes Mugaga, and Mugaga means stale. The other Mugaga. So when you misspell it, I become stale. So Professor Michael Pipendia, whatever the case may be, thank you very much for traveling to from the US to here. At a time when someone said it is Ebola and so forth, you never feared that. Thank you for coming around. I also want to thank the panelists who are coming up to discuss. We thank you for coming around, the moderator, and the organizing team. Of course, as I told you, I take the credit, but I have not organized. It's Professor Ronald Bisaso, my deputy, Professor Wakabulindi, and others who have spent timeless nights running around, writing the magazine and so forth. Thank you very much. May God be your guide and reward. I want to thank again, as I wind up, all of you for accepting to grace this occasion. Chairperson Council and your council, your deputy, he was among the very first people to come around. He sets a very good example to us. Thank you very much. I want to end with this. We are celebrating 100 years. USA has universities which run to about 300 years. Europe has universities which run to around 1,000 years. Oxford, Lund, and so forth. What has kept them through all those years? We've had our ups and downs. But we've always built for the future. We've always stood. I pray that as we launch into the other centenary, the other 100 years, we all commit to keep Makerere standing. And I think that's what the Senteza did during the turbulent times of war, the Liberation War of 1979, 1980, and others. Makerere had its challenges. Kalimuzo was killed, and others. But usually, we come out to be on top. So I want to welcome all of you and to thank you for coming around. Thank you very much as we build for the future for God and my country.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Professor Mugaga for that wonderful remarks he has made. I mentioned something small about Professor Kajubi. When he was appointed the VC in 1990, I was completing a postgraduate diploma in education in this place. And what I do remember is that he officiated at that graduation ceremony of January, February 1990. Professor Kajubi, like many other professors in Makerere, have been known for complicating matters for others. Some of you may remember also the late Professor Apollo Sibambi using words like lugubrious, and he ended up being called by that name. Kajubi was also one such person with very many huge words that he would use. I am imagining if I use some here, you will not understand, and you'll go consulting the dictionary. But we have the family of Professor Kajubi with us in this house. And I would wish to take this opportunity at this time to invite the son of Professor Kajubi, he is called Kajubi Waswa, to come and say a little bit more about his father. I think after that, I will tell you exactly who Kajubi is. Waswa, welcome. Come and talk about your father seriously.
Can you hear me? The United States Ambassador to Uganda, Her Excellency Natalie E. Brown, the chairperson of the Makerere University, Ms. Laura Magara, the Vice Chancellor of Makerere, or his representative, Professor Barnabas Waga, Vice Chancellor of other universities, present here, the Principal of Makerere University, College of Education and External Studies, Professor Anthony Mugaga, keynote speaker, Dr. Michael Pipendia, that's the Ugandan pronunciation of your name, the Vice President and Associate Provost for Internationalization at the University of Notre, Fulbright scholars present, dignitaries from the government of Uganda, dignitaries from the government of Mengo and other parts of Uganda, students, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol is observed. My name is Waswadiowedi Kajubi. My role is to represent the family of Professor William Kajubi. Let me start by expressing our deepest gratitude and honor for all the individuals and institutions that were involved or are involved in organizing this lecture in memory of our father and celebrating the role that the Fulbright program played in his life and continues to create opportunities that enhance other people's life. The time granted to me does not allow me to mention all the names that have to be thanked, but please allow me permission to mention the following. Her Excellency Natalie Brown, E. Brown, and through her, the government of the United States for sponsoring the Fulbright Scholarship Program, which has benefiting so many Ugandans and citizens from the nations in the world. Ms. Laura Magara, the chairperson of the Makerere University Council, and Professor Barnabas Nawage, the Vice Chancellor for Makerere, for organizing the celebration of 100 years and including this memorial lecture in their program. We are very grateful. Professor Anthony Mugaga and his entire team at the Makerere University College of Education and External Studies, including Professor Masagazi Sazi for supporting this and other Professor William Senteza Kajubi Memorial Lectures. We are eternally grateful for that. Dr. Michael Pipendia, for traveling to Uganda to deliver the keynote lecture under the theme Internationalization of Higher Education and in the Next Century. This is very important. Our special thanks go to the panelists. I cannot fail to mention the appreciation of all the sponsors who have made it financing for this lecture possible. We thank all of you in the audience for making time to attend this lecture. Thank you for gracing this lecture with your presence. We value it very much. Now, Elsie and William Senteza Kajubi had 9 children. 6 of these children were a pair of twins. The first pair of twins were born while our father was a visiting student, a visiting Fulbright student at the University of Chicago. He told us his experiences when he traveled by bus from Chicago to California to visit some friends. During that period, it was a practice so that the people of color had to sit in the back of buses. Now, because he was a guest of the government of the United States, he was exempt from that protocol. So, given that background, we are very impressed by the immeasurable goodwill embedded in the vision of J. William Bright for sponsoring intercultural student exchange program between the United States and the rest of the world at a time when so much work needed to be was needed to address the prevailing challenges of racism, lack of opportunities for individual progress, weak prospects for national economic development, and limited focus on promoting global social harmony. Now, in our parents' home, there is a certificate in the names of Queen Elizabeth II that was awarded to Mr. Yoweri Kajubi, for Professor Senteza's father, in recognition of the loyal and valuable services he rendered for 40 years as a driver in the Public Works Department in the Uganda Protectorate. Personally, I know of no other program that is as successful in transforming the lives of individuals, families, nations, as the Fulbright program. From a family perspective, the Fulbright program furnished momentum to the son of a driver so that he could create opportunities for his family and go on to serve his nation in so many ways. We applaud the Fulbright program. We also encourage Ugandans to seek and pursue prospects offered by the Fulbright program. In closing, let me share with you a quote from the legendary tennis player Arthur Ashe, which, in my opinion, summarizes the relevance of the Fulbright initiative. The quote says, "What we get out of life, we make a living. What we give back, we make life." Thank you for listening. Enjoy the lecture.
Yes, we are here to celebrate a legacy. Sometimes when we lose our loved ones, we use a statement, "Let his or her legacy live on." I'm glad that today it's testimony that Professor Senteza Kajubi's legacy is living on. Your Excellency, the U.S. Ambassador to Uganda, and the entire delegation from the U.S. mission, all development partners of Makerere University as present, the family of Professor Senteza Kajubi, ministers emeritus present. I think I've seen Honorable Semakula Chiwanuka in the audience, the chairperson and members Makerere University Council, former members of Makerere University Council. We have Mrs. Christine Chiganda, the former vice chairperson of Makerere University Council. I'm humbly requesting you, Mrs. Christine Chiganda, to stand up for recognition. Yes, thank you so much. That's Mrs. Christine Chiganda, former vice chairperson of Makerere University Council. Makerere University Senate, Makerere University Management, Vice Chancellors of sister universities, welcome home. I use the term welcome home because you were nurtured by Makerere University. So we welcome you home, Professor Iko and Professor Lugujo, and other Vice Chancellors in the audience. Former VCs, Deputy Vice Chancellors of Makerere University, principals, deputy principals, deans, and heads of departments, the leadership, staff, and students from the College of Education and External Studies, thank you for ensuring that we have the Mark at 100 lecture, where we are paying tribute to an icon, a distinguished icon, in the name of the late Professor Senteza Kajubi. Head teachers of schools, thank you for joining us. And Makerere College School, the students, yes, thank you very much. You're most welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, in brief, we have the Makerere at 100 Organizing Committee. Makerere University is celebrating 100 years of existence and excellent service to humanity. And this journey has been 1 year. The celebrations were launched by His Excellency President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni at Kololo during the independence celebrations last year. And we'll be glad to have the Makerere at 100 celebrations, the grand finale, on 6th October this year. The Mark at 100 Organizing Committee comprises the chairperson, who is Right Honorable Daniel Chidega, and he's with us, Professor Barnabas Nangwe, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Umaru Kakumba, Professor Henry Naitwe, Mr. Don Wanyama, CEO Vision Group, Dr. Michael Alimbwa, Dr. Zahara Nampewo, Ms. Rita Namisango, Mr. Awel Uhinganyi. Now, may I, in a minute, because we are trying to save time, may I request humbly all the members of Mark at 100 Organizing Committee to stand up? Those present in the room. Oh, yes, and Dr. Mtenyo, thank you so much. Now, after that very wonderful introduction, I'm honored to invite the chairperson, Mark at 100 Organizing Committee, Right Honorable Daniel Chidega, to come and address us. And following our protocol, after his speech, he will ably invite the chairperson, Makerere University Council, Mrs. Rona Magara. Let us accord our chairperson, Mark at 100 Organizing Committee, a befitting welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my sister. Your Excellency, Natalie Brown, the Ambassador of the United States of America, senior citizens who have seen around, particularly former ministers, former members of parliament, and other senior Ugandans who have served this great nation in different capacity. The chairperson of the University Council, Mrs. Rona Magara, my leader, and members of the University Council, members of the management of the university, and other invited leaders of other universities in this country, our dear keynote speaker, Dr. Michael, members of the great family led by my brother here, the family of Professor Senteza Kajubi, you're most welcome. Distinguished panelists who are going to engage this gathering, our great student leaders, but most importantly, the Fulbright scholars who are in this house. Good afternoon. As your humble servant, my role here is very brief. First and foremost, to welcome you to this great day when we are celebrating 100 years marked by this university. And in doing so, we are celebrating a gallant son of Uganda, Professor Senteza Kajubi, in a public lecture organized by the College of Education and External Studies. You're most welcome. Allow me to take this opportunity in a very special way to extend, on behalf of the organizing committee, the support and the partnership we enjoy from the embassy, the United States Embassy, through the ambassador. We are very humble and grateful for the partnership and the support. In a very special way, allow me to pay tribute to the great family of Professor Senteza Kajubi for volunteering and giving to this great university a gallant son that has served this nation, that has served this country, that has led this university to where it is today, and afforded us the opportunity to gather here to celebrate his work. Thank you. Special tribute to the gallant son of Uganda, Professor Kajubi. Wherever he is, I am sure he's turning with joy because he's seeing all of us gathered here, celebrating the values he's left with us. We celebrate his life. Professor Senteza Kajubi stood for very clear, simple, but firm value system. He stood firm to promote education in this country. We salute him and say thank you to you, the family members who are here. He firmly confronted the thinking that wanted to lock the door of university and tertiary education to Ugandans and other Africans. Many of us today here are called professors or scholars because of the firm stand of Professor Kajubi that opened the door of university and tertiary education to black Ugandans and Africans. We thank him. Without preempting the detail of the speech from my leader and the gist of the presentation from Dr. Michael, I would like to take this opportunity to thank him for accepting our invitation from all the way to come and celebrate the life of his colleague, a Fulbright scholar, Professor Kajubi. We thank you for accepting our invitation. We are all sitting at the edge of our chairs, waiting for you to irrigate us with knowledge on the topic of internationalization of education in the next century as we celebrate the life of our gallant son and fallen hero. I thank you so much. As your humble servant, I take this opportunity to invite my leader, the chair of the University Council. You're most welcome. God bless you all.
Thank you, Right Honorable Kideka. Your Excellency, Natalie Brown, the Ambassador of the United States of America, and the delegation from the mission, the Deputy Chairperson of Council, Right Honorable Dan Kidega, senior leaders here present, including the former leaders, the former ministers, government ministers, former council members, former vice chancellors. I believe that once a leader, you'll always be a leader. So we receive you as our leaders. The Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Umar Kakumba, representing the Vice Chancellor, members of management present, I believe I've mentioned members of council here present,
Our keynote speaker, Dr. Michael Pipendia, good, I've got it, I think. The family of Senteza, Professor Senteza Kajubi, thank you for honoring our invitation. In celebrating Professor Kajubi's life, we're really celebrating your lives as well. We're celebrating you, his family. Distinguished panelists, gallant alumni, our students present, it's lovely to see the young people here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It gives me great pleasure to join Honorable Kidega to welcome you all to Makerere University this afternoon as we celebrate a man I describe as one of the founding fathers of Uganda's education system, Professor William Senteza Kajubi. Professor Kajubi's legacy as a teacher, an educator, policy advisor, a pioneer and leader of several higher educational institutions is nothing short of astounding. Today we celebrate a life profoundly lived and a legacy worth emulating. As a teacher, a proud teacher, we have the opportunity to mold lives, to nurture lives, to turn them into, to nurture them to become everything that they were intended to be. And so Professor Kajubi took that legacy, that opportunity as an educator, as a teacher, to spur this nation into a direction that I believe we currently are in, that we would not have otherwise been. So we honor his legacy today. Professor Kajubi's life symbolized hard work, passion for the profession, creativity, innovation, and courage to pursue and carry out a vision. Indeed, in the words of his former student, the late Right Honorable Apollo Robin Sibambi, another distinguished alumnus and scholar, former Prime Minister and first non-head of state chancellor of this great institution, he said, and I quote, he, Professor Senteza Kajubi, mastered the subject of geography so well that we were able to understand it very well. His delivery skills were very good. He was therefore able to capture and sustain our attention. End of quote. It's not surprising that one who captured and sustained the attention of his students was himself a great student. His father, Yoweri Kajubi, was awarded, as we've just heard, the Certificate of Honor by Her Royal Majesty Queen Elizabeth II for his over 40 years of dedicated service to the Uganda Protectorate as a driver for the Public Works Department and Post Office. On the other hand, his mother was an entrepreneur who ran a shop, tailored dresses and wedding gowns, and baked confectionaries. This hard work ethic was reinforced daily by a family motto in the Kajubi sitting room, Omulimu ly'erinnya ly'omuntu, which may be translated as one's work is one's name. It is safe to assume, and I stand to be corrected, that this family motto served as a daily reminder to the young student and later distinguished professor of the importance of hard work and the value and honor of a good name. His passion and pursuit for knowledge can be traced through his education journey from Mengo Junior Secondary School to King's College, Budo, to Makerere University, and on to the University of Chicago on a Fulbright scholarship, graduating with an MS, Master of Science with a concentration in geography. Upon return, he embraced the privilege and honor of serving as a teacher and administrator. His dedicated service saw him rise through the ranks to serve as director, National Institute of Education, and twice as Vice Chancellor of Makerere University. His service is renowned for the dawn of phenomenal educational reforms. Professor Kajubi introduced the private sponsorship scheme opening the door to privately sponsored students to study at Makerere University. In 1987, he chaired the Uganda National Education Policy Review Commission, now known as the Senteza Kajubi Education Commission, which led to the white paper recommending the implementation of universal primary education. This move set Uganda's education landscape on a new trajectory. Makerere University's 100-year journey has been shaped by men and women of the caliber of Professor Senteza Kajubi, whose distinguished service we are proud to celebrate. There are many significant lessons to learn from their lives, and definitely from the life of Professor Kajubi. To leave an impactful legacy is to serve with dedication, passion, and diligence. It is to unrelentingly pursue a cause with courage to the end for the benefit of society. As we celebrate Makerere at 100, let us commit to transforming our society for the greater good of future generations. I thank you all for your kind attention and wish you a wonderful afternoon as we commemorate the life and legacy of Professor William Senteza Kajubi. Have a good afternoon. It's now my singular honor and great pleasure to invite the Ambassador, Natalie Brown, to come and address us. You're very welcome, Your Excellency.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chair of Makerere University Council, Lorna Magara. Vice Chair of the Council, Honorable Daniel Chidega. Deputy Vice Chancellor, the Principal, College of Education External Studies. I'd also like to acknowledge Honorable Joyce Mpanga, Fulbright alumna, pioneer in education, former MP, former minister, I think all of the other distinguished officials, the Fulbright scholars and alumni, of course, Dr. Pipenger, thank you for making the trip, my colleagues from the U.S. Mission, guests, students, thank you for the invitation to join you today. It gives me great pleasure to be at the university today, and in fact, this is my third time in the past week here at Makerere, so I think that says a lot about the university and the relationship it has with the United States Mission. But for today's event, it's truly special to join you in the special event commemorating the Fulbright program and recognizing distinguished Fulbright alumnus, the late Professor William Senteza Kajubi, as you've heard, one of the first Fulbright students from Africa. As we also celebrate Makerere's University 100-year anniversary and 60 years of the U.S.-Uganda relationship, the U.S. Mission is proud to stand in partnership with this historic educational institution, and there's much to celebrate as we look forward to the next 100 years. As I look across this audience and see how busy the campus has been these past few months, allow me to acknowledge that one of the reasons that we're able to gather in person like this is because of vaccines. Conditions are improving, but COVID-19 continues to be a threat. Vaccines are safe, they're effective, and I trust that everyone here is fully vaccinated. And if you're in a certain age group like me, and I'll actually be a year older tomorrow, I hope you're also boosted if you're eligible to do that, if you're eligible for being boosted, and also encourage your friends, families, all of your loved ones, and especially young people to get vaccinated as well. There's an ongoing vaccine campaign right now for younger people, and the United States to date has donated over 18 million vaccine doses to Uganda and the Ugandan people to make sure that we can resume all of the activities that we previously enjoyed. And I will add that the confirmed case of Ebola in Mapende district is also a reminder of the need to take seriously public health concerns. And I want to recognize all of the medical professionals who are responding to the outbreak, and many of them are graduates of this university. So I think that says a lot about the tradition of service and commitment to community. But back to the reason why we're gathered today. The Kajubi Fulbright Lecture. You've heard, so what is the Fulbright program in which Professor Kajubi participated in the late 1950s? Following World War II, U.S. Senator William Fulbright established this academic exchange program to build mutual understanding between the peoples of the world. Through degree programs, research, and teaching opportunities, American and international students can pursue academic exchange experiences through the Fulbright program. In 2021, just last year, we celebrated the 75th anniversary of this prestigious program, which includes over 400,000 alumni from 180 countries, and over 400 of these alumni are from Uganda. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken summed up the extraordinary strength of the Fulbright program, stating, "The power of personal connection that this program makes possible is just as important as ever. The members of the Fulbright community are change makers. They care deeply about the problems facing our world today, from stopping COVID-19 to countering threats to democracy." And as you've heard, Professor Kajubi is a shining star among Fulbright alumni in Uganda and beyond. He traveled to the United States in 1952 as a Fulbright student to pursue a master's degree at the University of Chicago. And thank you so much for sharing the story of his experiences during the Jim Crow era. I hadn't heard that before, and I appreciate that bit of history. His two-time tenure appointments at the helm of this university demonstrate his outstanding leadership ability. Moreover, Professor Kajubi did not limit himself to education alone. He went on to serve as a delegate to Uganda's Constituent Assembly, which created the new constitution in 1995, among other things. And his legacy of service to his country remains an inspiration to generations of faculty and students alike. The U.S. mission in Kampala is proud to manage the Fulbright program in Uganda. This year, we sent 12 Ugandan Fulbright grantees to academic programs for masters, PhDs, or research in the United States, and we're welcoming 9 U.S. Fulbrighters to conduct research and teach in Uganda. And as I mentioned previously, over 400 Ugandans have visited the United States on the Fulbright program and have returned to provide valuable public service to their country in the areas of education, media, science and innovation, law and human rights, art and culture, and business. More than 370 American scholars, researchers, and teachers have come to lecture, teach, and conduct research in Uganda through Fulbright. The numbers alone do not tell the whole story. Each of these Fulbrighters impacted the institutional capacity of this country and the lives of countless others. Recent U.S. Fulbright scholars have also been involved in strengthening Uganda's research into teaching capacity in law, medical sciences, environmental sciences, and agriculture. One remarkable thing about this program is the breadth of the subjects supported. To note the impact of these exchanges, I wish to highlight the Fulbright program's contributions to a few fields at the university. In the last 3 decades, 10 U.S. Fulbrighters have come to Makerere to teach in the Department of Mass Communication and Journalism. 7 Ugandan faculty have received Fulbright grants to pursue higher degrees of journalism-related subjects at U.S. universities. And these faculty came back to Makerere and trained a significant number of journalists and communication experts at the degree level, a change from the previous certificate and diploma programs. One of them, David Balikoa, collaborated with others to start the Monitor newspaper, which today we know as the leading independent daily. And Professor Monica Shibita went on to strengthen UCU's Department of Mass Communication, which she helped transform into the School of Journalism, Media, and Communication. In the rule of law, Fulbright alumnus Ismaina Zarifis, is she here with us today? was instrumental in the establishment of the Public Interest Law Clinic in 2012 at Makerere School of Law. As the first law clinic established at a university in Uganda, this legal education program continues to equip law students with public interest law skills that have helped strengthen the protection of rights of ordinary Ugandan citizens. And there's artist Taga Nawagaba, who is a lecturer and resident artist at Christian Brothers University in Memphis, Tennessee. And recently, New York artist Janet Goldner. She presented a 6-week workshop for visual art students in the Department of Fine Arts here at the university, where they focused on found and local materials to explore social issues. I haven't even scratched the surface of our Fulbright connections, and yet the Fulbright program is only one of the many ways the U.S. mission is engaged with the university. We're proud to help make this university a global center for learning through partnerships with various other U.S. government agencies. If you'll allow me to cite a few examples, I mentioned I've been here 3 times this week. Last week, I was at an event. The National Institutes of Health has supported U.S.-Ugandan collaborative research at Makerere University for over 50 years. And last week, an event at the African Center for Excellence in Bioinformatics. I had to look that up because I wasn't sure what it meant. It's just one of 2 centers in Africa. The other one is in Mali. I joined the students as they were showcasing the research aimed at solving critical health problems using advanced bioinformatics. And I was proud to see U.S. Fulbright scholar Jessica Kissinger supporting their work. The U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, has partnered with the university on countless programs over the past 6 decades. Through USAID, we have introduced new degree programs, such as the PhD program in the Faculty of Agriculture, an executive MPH MBA course, and we have supported efforts to strengthen the social service workforce. USAID has also established research facilities, such as the Center for Climate Change Research and Innovations, and has supported research projects at Makerere across many areas. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control has been working closely with the university for decades through partnerships with U.S. universities, such as the world-renowned Johns Hopkins University, to collaborate on essential public health research, often leading to groundbreaking discoveries. And along with the Makerere School of Public Health, CDC supports the Field Epidemiology Training Program to empower the next generation of public health leaders. I was privileged to join the graduation of the recent group in March and was so impressed by the passion of these young people trained by both U.S. and Ugandan experts and the work that they've done in addressing public health concerns, including the current Ebola outbreak, informing policy and publishing their research. Through our Department of Defense, we established in 2002 the Makerere University Walter Reed Project for the primary purpose of HIV vaccine development and building vaccine testing capability in Uganda. And I'm proud to highlight that much of this work is supported by the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, or PEPFAR. And through PEPFAR, the U.S. government has partnered with the university as a national leader in essential public health education, research, and surveillance for nearly 20 years. And over the last 2 decades, Makerere has proven to be a global leader in HIV/AIDS response, and our strong collaboration continues, with PEPFAR investing over $32 million in Makerere in this coming year alone. These examples are only the tip of the deep relationship the United States mission to Uganda has with this prestigious university. There are many more examples of the U.S. universities partnering with Makerere, and many not affiliated with the U.S. government, and the list, I'm certain, will continue to grow. In just a few weeks, we'll launch a new writing center with Michigan State University, an institution I know already has ties with Makerere. It's this continued investment in the people of the university through training and exchange programs like Fulbright, joint research on the most important topics facing the region, and institutional development that we are proud to celebrate on this 100-year anniversary. And now, to return to today's theme, the internationalization of higher education. Clearly, Makerere has taken advantage of international partnerships over the years. In today's world, it is essential to build upon and strengthen the university's capacity in this area to take Makerere into the next 100 years. I look forward to hearing Dr. Michael Pipendia's discussion about how forging international partnerships will cement this university's place as a global leader in higher education. The heart of the Fulbright program and so many of these academic partnerships mentioned above is about connecting people across cultures to engender mutual understanding and work on solving the key issues of the day. And at the heart of the U.S. mission's efforts to do this is Dorothy Ngalombi. Dorothy, can I ask you to stand up, please? I say anyone who has participated in any of these exchange programs has interacted with Dorothy, and she has been key to the success of these things, and she will be leaving the U.S. mission, unfortunately, too soon to pursue other interests. So I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge you, that we thank you, that we appreciate for everything that you've done in the interest of building stronger relations between the American and the Ugandan people. Thank you, Dorothy. And as we all celebrate 60 years of Ugandan independence later this year, and certainly 60 years of U.S.-Ugandan relations, we can look to the strong bonds between our two peoples in the United States and Makerere University as essential for building a more peaceful, a more prosperous, a healthier, and more democratic future for all of our citizens. Thank you again for having me, and congratulations on the 100-year anniversary.
Yes, we were told we are here to celebrate, right? After all those wonderful speeches, let us show that we are in the room. Hello. Yes. Thank you so much. And I've also seen the online audience waving. Yes, we are here for the Professor Senteza Kajubi, right? Yes, when someone asks you, where are you? You should know where you are. That's why we have all that literature in front of us. Professor Senteza Kajubi, Fulbright Memorial Lecture, as Makerere University celebrates 100 years of excellent service to humanity. Today's protocol, since the auditorium is full, is quite tight, but since we are in the mood of celebration, permit me just to use 2 minutes to mention the following people. Owekitiibwa Ambassador Simbwa Bunya, former Minister of Agriculture, Mengo. Honorable Mrs. Joyce Mpanga. Yes, we welcome you. Yes. Professor Paul Mugambi, Chairperson, Uganda Vice Chancellor's Forum. And together with Mama, Mrs. Mugambi, you're welcome. I hadn't seen the person who has, but he chose to sit strategically, and that's always the man for you. We have Honorable John Kenny Ruchams in the room, the man. Welcome home. And I know that you love things to do with the lectures, debates, and all that, and I look forward to your participation during the question and answer session. Now, I was really advised that in such a situation, it's not always a normal thing to have vice chancellors. So I was requested that instead of just saying vice chancellors of sister universities, that I should mention the vice chancellors. Professor Elia Blukucho, Vice Chancellor Ndeje University. Professor Ikoja Odong, Vice Chancellor Soroti University. Professor Mauda Kamatenesi, Vice Chancellor Bishop Stewart University in Mbarara. Yes, you're welcome. Then we also have young ones, the schools, the next generation, or the leaders of today and tomorrow. From Makerere College School, Makerere Memorial School, you're all welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rita, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. We started when the hall was half empty, but now we are good enough in number. We said from the beginning that we are celebrating the life of an icon, and truly from what the son of Professor Kajubi said about the father, and what we have also known about the father, we can all agree that Professor Kajubi, that we are celebrating his life, is truly an icon and an educationist that whose footprints on our education system will never go away. 4 things I want us to go back with about Kajubi that we should think about. 1, we have learned he is the first African to get the Fulbright scholarship in 1952. The first. 2, he was the Vice Chancellor of Makerere University, 2 times, appointed by 2 different presidents. One of them was not very normal. You know the president who appointed Kajubi for the first time to be VC here? I don't want to remember very much. 2 times was president here, VC here. The third thing you may need to go back remembering about Kajubi is that he chaired 2 different committees that reviewed the education system of this country. One was in 1977, which report never came out. And the second one was in 1989, which report came out and culminated into the 1992, the education white paper that we still have in place. That is the third thing you need to remember about Kajubi. And maybe the 4th and very important also, Kajubi produced 3 sets of twins. 3 sets of twins. One of them is here. I know that there are many younger professors here who are trying to catch up with that. But breaking that record, breaking that Kajubi record, the last one here, is not going to be easy. I pray for all of you, the younger professors, who are trying to break Kajubi's record. Ladies and gentlemen, can you get up a bit and shake your leg because we have sat for too long? We are entering into the second and probably last phase. Can you get up where you are and see if you are still healthy? If you are still healthy and strong? Yes? Okay. Are you okay? Thank you very much. Sit down and we start. Sit and we start. We are now going into the second phase of this activity that we are in for. We are going to listen to our keynote speaker this afternoon, Dr. Michael Pipendia, all the way from the United States of America. And I know that many of you have been listening to that type of English I'm speaking now. We are blessed this afternoon. You will hear proper English. Proper English. So sit, keep quiet, and pay attention. Is that okay? Dr. Michael is the Vice President and Associate Provost for Internationalization at the University of Notre in the United States of America. If Dr. Michael was working in Makerere, you would have been the DVC of Professor Nawangwe, like Professor Omar Kakumba here is. What interests me about Dr. Michael is that he loves the issue of internationalization of education. He works around it. And he studied English language, mastered in it, did a PhD in it, and is going to come and display proper English. Doctor, let me not introduce you all in full. Come and speak to us. You're most welcome, Dr. Pipenger.
Good afternoon. Thank you for that kind introduction. Ambassador Brown, Deputy Vice Chancellor, members of the University Council, members of the leadership of this esteemed university, vice chancellors from other universities around Uganda, Fulbright scholars past and present, distinguished guests, faculty, and students, and especially the family of Dr. Kajubi. Thank you for your very warm welcome and for the opportunity to speak with you today. I am especially grateful to Makerere University and to the U.S. Mission in Kampala for the invitation to address this world-renowned educational community in honor of the centenary of the university's founding. To do so as Uganda comes upon its 60th anniversary of independence on October 9th makes this occasion all the more special. To deliver the Professor William Senteza Kajubi Fulbright Lecture as we celebrate 100 years of Makerere is especially fulfilling and humbling. As someone like Professor Kajubi, whose life was profoundly transformed by a Fulbright scholarship, I know firsthand the power of global education. In fact, I've dedicated my professional life to this work. But before we talk together about what it means to be a global citizen and what it means for a university to be global, I would like to reflect briefly on the legacy and inspiration of Professor Kajubi's life, as I think it gives us an important foundation for our conversation this afternoon. We in the field of education, in higher education, and in particular global education, are all the beneficiaries of his leadership and his wisdom. One of the key dimensions of Professor Kajubi's life for me was his lifelong passion for geography. We know of the seminal role that Professor Kajubi played in championing education for all throughout Uganda, in articulating the value that comes to a country where regarding education with pride is the norm. His two remarkable tenures as Vice Chancellor of Makerere during times of strife, insecurity, uncertainty, and profound societal change have led in part to the Makerere that stands strong and proud today as a model of excellence that educators around the world can learn from. We even have him to thank in part for the Ugandan national anthem sung so beautifully at the beginning of our ceremony today. He was a Renaissance man in so many ways, someone who was always thinking about how to shape and empower his students for them to be their best. And who were his very first students? I want us to recall that they were in fact high school students in a geography class. I've wondered since learning about this early stage of his career how he came to have such a passion for geography. As a child, did he look at maps for hours on end, imagining other countries, other peoples, other places, other voices that were radically different from his own, as I myself did? Did he, like I, believe that reading about places thousands of kilometers away would shed light on the place that he called home? What were the learning outcomes he had for his students in that classroom who sat in front of him day after day? Did he want to instill in them an understanding of Uganda's place in Africa and the world? Did he want them to grasp what it meant to be a part of the Commonwealth at that time? Did he want them to learn about the United States? If there are former students of Professor Kajubi's from that phase of his life here today, I would love to learn from you what that classroom was like. Please find me and share your stories. What I do know for certain is that he was passionate enough about geography to become one of the first Fulbright scholars from Uganda and from Africa. What a pioneer he was in this regard. There are now over 400 Ugandans, as you heard the ambassador share, who have become Fulbright scholars thanks to this flagship program of education and public diplomacy. But imagine what a complete leap of faith he must have had to have taken at that point in time. The program had only just begun in 1946, and 6 years later, in 1952, he found himself at the University of Chicago pursuing a Master's of Science in Geography. The unique nature of the scholarship that was meant in part to cultivate a new kind of global citizen must have captured his imagination intellectually and viscerally. To immerse himself in the study of places and peoples, and to do it 12,434 kilometers from home, may have been beyond the wildest dreams of a boy in Busega, or it may have been exactly what he had been dreaming of all along. I myself was a Fulbright scholar in 1997 at the University of Wollongong in Wollongong, Australia. At that time, I was conducting research for my own dissertation, seeking to understand why we as Americans don't read writers from Australia, a country in many ways so much like my own. My hypothesis was that we had been influenced by British imperial tropes and narratives that propagated the idea that no original art or culture of value could come from a colonial space or a remote place in the empire, especially in Australia's case, a colonial space that was founded as a prison. My Fulbright scholarship was an extraordinary gift. It afforded me the opportunity to be creative and pursue intellectual lines of inquiry that I had never been able to pursue before in my life. It allowed me to study with and learn from preeminent scholars to produce knowledge that would advance cross-cultural understanding and provide new theoretical lenses for my academic field. It also enabled me to travel around the country to see literary and historical sites that I had hitherto only read about at my desk in an apartment in a small town in rural Indiana. And perhaps most important, it allowed me to make new friends and colleagues from all walks of life that have sustained and nourished me ever since. Networks that connected me to my first job outside of graduate school upon finishing my PhD, managing the U.S. Fulbright program for Asia and the Pacific at the Institute of International Education in New York City. The Fulbright program is a great model for us to consider as we think together about cooperative initiatives that create global citizens and international partnerships between universities in the process. Scholars under Fulbright leave their homes as ambassadors, in effect, and as a byproduct, bring their peers and professors, their colleagues and their communities and their families into a wider network of interactions with people they would otherwise never have known. The Fulbright program, as you may know and heard briefly about before, was created in the uncertain aftermath of World War II. Senator J. William Fulbright of Arkansas conceived of a scholarship program that would promote peace and cross-cultural understanding and respect. Taking funds that would have otherwise been earmarked for war, he encouraged his fellow senators to reappropriate those funds under the conviction that if I come to your country and you come to my country, we will be less likely to go to war together. We would instead create networks of research and learning, new forms of friendship. We would become colleagues that could shape the world and that would shape us into leaders who can speak to the value of collaboration and global community, perhaps maybe even avert future wars and ultimately reshape our world. How might the Fulbright framework offer key convictions and lessons and values that we can apply to the way universities create global partnerships? How could its paradigm guide us in creating innovative, sustainable, and mutually beneficial partnerships? I'd like to highlight 3 values that are essential to successful global collaborations and partnerships. Values inherent, I believe, in the Fulbright program. They are solidarity, transparency, and commitment. I'd like now to briefly illustrate the challenges and rewards that can come from global collaboration through the lens of those 3 values, through some anecdotes from my own career that I would like to share. Solidarity. Universities need to have a shared understanding of themselves and their partners in order to foster solidarity. We should ask if our institutions share a common set of values that guide our decision-making and our collective goal setting. Do we have a clearly articulated mission and vision that hails one another, giving us a common language for our partnership and allows us to imagine what we could do together? Do our respective missions and visions have a point of intersection that will excite our students and faculty members to want to work together? Good partners listen to one another, hearing and understanding where they are in their own institutional histories and their own geographic ecosystems. Such empathy makes for stronger foundations for partnerships. You can't be a partner just by saying you want to be one. You need to listen first to know if you should be partners, and if so, how best that should happen. All of those questions and all of those values, every Fulbright scholar in the room and Dr. Kajubi knew and know. I once had a counterpart at another globally recognized university make a courtesy call to my university. She sat down with me and within 5 minutes snapped open her briefcase and put before me a friendship agreement. She had pre-signed it, and it was between our universities, and immediately asked me to sign it. I told her I couldn't possibly do that. We had only just met. We hadn't discussed anything. I needed to learn more about her university and its goals and aspirations. She countered by saying, "Don't you want to be my friend?" I replied, "Yes, of course I do. And I hoped our institutions could be friends over time. But we didn't need to sign an agreement to explore whether our institutions should be friends or conduct research together or do work for the common good." She left disappointed that I didn't sign, and she never followed up with me or my colleagues again. That university's website proudly states that they have over 300 international agreements. Just having a lot of memoranda of understanding doesn't make an institution global. What matters most is the quality of an international partnership. And I would argue that there's no better foundational quality from which to build a partnership than one of solidarity. Let's talk about transparency next. International partners are transparent with one another, because when they are transparent, they have a much better chance of succeeding in their work together. Why? Because in being honest about strengths and weaknesses, partners can find spaces for innovation, for common ground, for ways of helping one another and strengthening each other's weaknesses, even as they fill in gaps of knowledge between them. When university partners and international collaborators come together and communicate openly about the differences between our institutions and about our dreams for the future, new dreams can come true. To build that kind of partnership takes trust, and trust comes over time, built from sustained dialogue and familiarity with one another. Trust and friendship, good communication demands that institutional partners share where they can contribute their individual expertise for the good of a partnership and also admit when they're unable to be of assistance. Open, honest, consistent communication today can lead to more creative and powerful partnerships in the future. This lesson that I first learned on the Fulbright program came to me again recently in the ongoing development of a critical relationship that my university is pursuing with an important university partner. We have been cultivating this relationship for several years and are considering a large-scale pipeline program that would allow our undergraduates from each of our institutions to have direct admission into our graduate programs at our respective universities. For some reason, we weren't making progress in that work. It was only when we shared our worries about our perceived shortcomings In this case, my colleague believed that her institution might not be able to commit the same level of resources to support the program. And on my part, a belief that I had that our university may not be perceived as geographically attractive or appealing to her students who traditionally go elsewhere. It was only when we shared those worries about our perceived shortcomings and had the courage to talk about those concerns that we were able to move forward and begin to implement the project. In our honesty with one another about those weaknesses and shortcomings and our fears, we grew in both our friendship and demonstrated how our partnership could be stronger together. Commitment. The third value I will highlight is commitment. Institutional partnerships require that each partner be committed to making the relationship work. And that can be very hard across the globe, across continents, across time zones, across cultures. We have to be committed to making that work as institutional partners. But commitment to global educational partnerships also needs to occur within our universities themselves. Sharing responsibility for a partnership in its projects requires that we also engage and bring into a global education conversation those partners from within our university that will play a role in making any sort of global partnership a success. Being a global university doesn't happen just from within an international relations office. It happens at multiple levels across all facets of a university. If we're bringing students from a new university or a new field of study to study on campus for the first time, what responsibility do faculty members have in welcoming those students and making that a success? What sort of housing will the university provide to ensure that new international faculty or new international students are well taken care of and integrated into the community? If there's a new research partnership with a university or an agency, whether it's governmental or third party or non-governmental, if there's a new research partnership that will require the disbursement of funds across the university or create additional costs, require new infrastructure, how does the university bring its finance division, its research colleagues, its university leadership, its health and safety experts, and other administrative partners into that project to ensure that it succeeds and thrives and that we all flourish together? Commitment asks, if not demands, that institutions collectively, as a community, knowing that they are stronger, that we are stronger together, be fully present and invested in global partnerships. For more than a decade, my university, the University of Notre Dame, has had an ever-growing relationship with Ukrainian Catholic University in Lviv, Ukraine. Ukrainian Catholic University, or UKU, was the first Catholic university created in the former Soviet Union. The partnership began in 2003 through the work of our Nanovic Institute for European Study, whose faculty were conducting research projects on democracy building, theology, civic education, and political science. This relationship deepened as we placed it in a network of other global relationships that were occurring in a consortium we had of universities from throughout Eastern Europe, which was meant to facilitate capacity building and growth between our universities. Building upon those two initiatives, in 2019, the University of Notre Dame awarded its highest global honor to Archbishop Boris Gudziak, the founder of that university. Our president, Father John Jenkins, and three of our vice presidents traveled to Lviv firsthand to see the work of the university, to celebrate it, and to hear faculty describe the impact of their research on the community around them and across the country and around the world. In each of these iterations, each of these new forms of partnership with this university, we were able to see our relationship deepen and widen across the university as more and more people participated in it, as more and more people were engaged and learned from one another, as people spoke across cultures, and across experiences to find commonalities and work together. That should sound like, to everyone in the room, like exactly what the Fulbright program does with its scholars on the individual level. All of that work that I've shared with you with Ukrainian Catholic University turned out to be more important and critical for what happened this year. When Russia invaded Ukraine, we were able to help our partner, and we did so by using all of the principles I've set forth today. First, we showed solidarity. Our university leadership met with theirs on a weekly basis, and we listened to them. We had no preconceived notion about how we were going to help them. We just knew, like any partner does, that sometimes it's best to sit with someone and listen and to accompany them on their journey. We sought this experience of listening and accompanying them on the difficult road so that we could hear what our partner needed first and then respond. From those weekly discussions, there quickly emerged ideas for how we could help in both the short term and long term. With these transparent and often harrowing talks, we were brought into greater solidarity with them, and in the process were able to show a more profound commitment in our global partnership. This spring, Archbishop Gudziak gave the commencement address at Notre Dame. This fall, 10 Ukrainian students are currently studying at the University of Notre Dame, living on our campus. They are all in the US for the first time. We are launching a new faculty research grant program that supports professors who wish to work together on projects. And later this year, administrators from UKU will visit us to learn from their counterparts at Notre Dame. This is an altogether new level of commitment and accountability, one that as a bright light amid so much horror has been rewarding to both institutions and to we who work with them. It's also been a model of what it means to be a global partner through good times and in bad. Global partnerships are, of course, as this final anecdote shows, I hope, only a means to an end. It's not that we have agreements signed that makes a university more global, but it's the work we are able to do as a result together. Just as it was with Senator Fulbright's vision for a scholarship program to build relationships so as to prevent war, the global partnerships that we universities build together must aspire for no less lofty goals. We need partners with whom to face the challenges before us. We need collaborators with whom to conduct the work of ending forced migration, of mitigating and responding to climate change, of eradicating disease and preventing future pandemics. We need allies with whom to end poverty, to protect and advance the rule of law, to bring about peace. And we need friends with whom to create new works of dance and music and art, and friends just to celebrate life and to celebrate special occasions and special moments along the way. To care for our common home, we need each other. Professor Kajubi knew this well. He knew this when he was teaching geography. He knew this when he was the vice chancellor of the university. He knew this when he was transforming Ugandan society through his vision and creativity and ability to bring people together. As Makerere begins its second century, may it continue to find new friends to fulfill its mission as one of the leading universities in Africa and the world. Thank you, and let us continue this great celebration of Makerere 100 together.
Another round of applause for Dr. Michael. Thank you so much, Dr. Michael, for that lovely presentation. May I recognize the presence of the following persons among us. Honorable Dr. Ham Molira, former Minister of ICT in this country. Professor Paul Katamba, from Bugema University. Welcome. Professor Abdu Mpata, representing the VC of Busitema University. Professor, you are welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, you will agree that we are time bad. I wish we started this thing in the morning at 10, but we began late. We are going into another phase. In this next phase, we have a panel of experts who are going to dissect the paper that Dr. Michael has just presented, but in about just 30 minutes. This panel of experts will be chaired by my colleague, Dr. Uzobia Baine, the Director of Gender Mainstreaming, and a colleague that teaches in the East African School of Higher Education Studies and Development. Doctor, welcome to chair the panel discussion. As he comes and organizes our panel, can we have a small interlude? Yes? A small musical interlude. We are celebrating. So we shouldn't forget that. We are celebrating. Just 2 minutes. 2 minutes. We are celebrating.
But they told
In my darkest hour, in my deepest despair, will you still care? Will you be there? In my trials and my tribulations, through my doubts and my frustrations, in my violence and my turbulence, in my trials and my confessions, in joy and sorrow, in the promise of another tomorrow, I'll never let you part, for you always in my heart. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, I have the honor to introduce to you my distinguished panel of eminent persons who are going to share with us their reflections on what has been delivered to us. The first panelist is Dr. James Nkata, the Director General of Uganda Management Institute, who is a specialist and scholar in higher education management, administration, and planning. You're welcome, Dr. Nkata. The second panelist is Professor Umar Kakumba. We fondly call him Professor UK. He's our Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of academic affairs, and he is also a scholar in public affairs, and he's going to share with us his perspective, and today he's also standing in for our Vice Chancellor. Last but not least is Dr. Cosmas Tumwichirize, who is the lecturer in the Department of Computer and Electrical Engineering in the College of Engineering, Design, Art and Technology of Makerere University. You're very, very welcome. To start the ball rolling, we are going to have two general questions where the panelists are going to share with us their perspectives. First of all, as Makerere University reflects and celebrates its 100 years and positions itself for the next century, I would like each one of you to take about 3 minutes to, given what has been shared by Dr. Michael, share with us whether you think higher education institutions in our context in Uganda are ready for internationalization. And whose is internationalization and whose journey is it? Thank you very much. Dr. Nkata, please.
Well, thank you very much, Chairperson. Allow me first of all to thank the organizers of this meeting for having invited me and also associating with this lecture. I'm so delighted in 2 ways. That is, I was a colleague of Professor Kajubi when he was in the School of Education. But most importantly, we come from the same heritage background with Professor Kajubi. Back to the question. I've listened very attentively to Professor Michael's presentation. And my reflection was, well, the question which I had in my mind, are we ready for internationalization as Ugandan universities? My simple answer is, we are walking the journey. We are not yet there. because he talked about a very important central point of internationalizing education. The object of higher education internationalization is to produce a global citizen. To produce a global citizen, you must have a global framework for producing a global citizen. You must have what we call a higher education area that shares common principles, common values, and common beliefs of a higher education system. Once you have this in place, then they will dictate the definition of a global citizen. And to transform a global citizen, you do it through what we call a socialization process. And the function of education is to socialize people into becoming global citizens by constructing a curriculum that can transform people into a global citizen. Now, to transform someone through a global system or getting somebody become a global person, there must be an object for which is being transformed. One, definition of a global citizen. Do we have a correct definition of a global citizen? It is by defining correctly who a global citizen is that experts can be able to construct a curriculum that will transform that global citizen. And that construction of a curriculum should be through collaborative and partnership approach. Lastly, Madam Person, the last comment. Our universities in this country are you ready to start the process of transforming Ugandans into global citizens? Where would be our point of convergence and the points of divergence? Are we able to identify our areas of convergence and our areas of divergence so that we can narrow the gap between the areas of convergence and the areas of divergence, and we serve this country to transform our people into global citizens. Thank you.
Dr. Kakumba, Professor Kakumba, sorry.
Many thanks to you, moderator. Permit me just in a minute to appreciate a very, very, very instructive and informative presentation by Michael regarding the theme on internationalization. Moderator, on the issue of whether universities are ready for internationalization, my response is that higher education institutions may not be ready, but they must be ready. They must be ready, especially if they are to remain relevant and competitive as 21st century universities. Just as Michael expressed in his presentation here, being a global university or an international university has values and virtues. But we also know that the word university is a nomenclature that has some foundation. To whoever must have propounded the notion of university must have thought about the idea of universal standards, because there are certain standards that cut across universities, across the world. If a university must remain a university worthy its name, if a university has to go beyond what others have described as glorified secondary schools, because universities apply in a universal way. Just talk about values like plagiarism. The moment you mention about the notion of plagiarism, everybody knows that it's a serious crime in a university environment. It's described as academic thuggery, if not robbery. That's a standard that has been set. The second aspect is about research. You cannot talk about a university of the 21st century unless it delves into research. The difference between other institutions of higher learning or secondary schools or other levels of education is that the research concentrates on generating the knowledge that is quickly passed on to the learners. But with the university research, and why university must be ready for internationalization is that research must be able to break the ground. It must be ready to address strategic interventions that can address global problems and global challenges. So coming on the second part, whose internationalization, if I may delve into that, Madam Moderator. Now, whose internationalization? The internationalization, I say, is not for the universities. The internationalization must be to the communities that the universities stand to serve. Because as Michael articulated here, through internationalization, universities must be able to derive and sieve out partnership attributes that can help their communities. We have been talking about global pandemics, global problems, world problems, development issues. Now these must be combined in a global perspective. So a university must transcend, therefore, its boundaries. And then whose journey? The journey is everybody. But to us, it starts with us. Charity begins at home. It begins with the governance, with the leadership, to take on to those universities to the journey of internationalization and globalization. I sit back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Dr. Tomuchirize.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Michael, for the instructive lecture. I want to concur with my fellow panelists that were really on a journey, but it depends on who is taking score. So what are the metrics that we're looking at? I know there are globally accepted ones. You're looking at maybe diversity of student population, international partnerships. Michael talked a lot about that. Internationalization of curricula, now because you're looking at producing global citizens. But can we realistically become very good at this, at all of this? Perhaps not. So we must identify what we can really be good at and engender that in order to foster internationalization of higher education. For example, I know Makerere has really done good at partnerships. We're also doing very well at improving curricula, but maybe focusing at how we can improve pedagogy so that it speaks to like staff and student mobility that can realistically be achieved in our context, I think would be a good way to start. But then Michael talked about a few things that we have to emphasize. Solidarity. If you're looking for partnerships, are you going to sign any MOU that comes your way? Perhaps not. I think it's very important that we evaluate critically what we get ourselves into and know that it speaks to our values. And then when we talk about issues of commitment, are we following through on some of these partnerships that we commit ourselves to? How are we going to do that if we still have these internal silos? If an engineer cannot speak to music, if social sciences cannot talk to the biological sciences, if law cannot speak to everyone else. So let us first see how we can harmoniously work together internally, and that's the only way that we can now cohesively attract credible partnerships. And then lastly, a point that I wanted to emphasize, over the last 2 years we've seen that technology in some way or form is going to be very central to internationalization of education. Now, it's good to keep adopting technology, but at some point, we must ensure that we develop the technology here. And so, to me, in nutshell, who is going to lead this move will depend on who takes proactive steps in ensuring that they are ready and they also develop appropriate tools and methodologies and processes that ensure that they can attract the right partners, and that's the only way we can foster credible partnerships and international education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now to the specific questions. Each one of you is going to answer to one question. First, Professor Kakumba, we'd like you to envision for us an international graduate and an internationalized university. How should we know an internationalized graduate and university when we see them and we say, yeah, this is really an international graduate, or this is an international university? Thank you.
Many thanks to you once again, moderator. Now there is, before you talk about the graduate, you must talk about the institution, because one cannot become an international graduate until the framework that my colleague, Dr. Ankata, talked about can allow, the framework of the institution can allow one, the product, to come out as a global graduate or a global citizen. So I'll start with the international graduate, international institution or university. Now, an international university, there are metrics that have been produced and utilized around the world to rank and understand what a university is in terms of international acclaim, in terms of international stature. One of them definitely is the recognition and ranking. You must be among the ranks of the bearers of international standards that Michael articulated here. So you must conform to those standards. And those standards involve a number of things. One of them is the partnership you talked about, not just the number of MOUs that you signed with international agencies, with organizations, but the implementation and the value addition that comes out of that. I should say that Makerere has made considerable strides in internationalization. And as Her Excellency here, the ambassador widely articulated how the US government and US agencies have been partnered with Ugandan institutions and many governments in Africa and institutions. Indeed, Makerere has made a considerable ground along that trajectory. And through it, you can talk about the Fulbright here, through exposure of international scholars, having exposure, having training, capacity building, because that's what makes an international institution. How many of your faculty have been exposed internationally? How many of them understand the global challenges and global issues affecting the community? And how well can they provide strategic interventions that can address those problems? So this kind of partnerships is important. You talk about United States Agency International Development. Makerere has had many projects running out of there. The National Institute of Health, the Rockefeller Foundation in agriculture and environmental sciences. You talk about the PEPFAR, the presidential initiative. We've had many. And Makerere has more than 25 partnerships, formal, but also continued working relationship with over 25 universities in the United States alone. Talk about the Johns Hopkins. There is no study about research on tropical medicine and non-communicable diseases that has Johns Hopkins as a leading US institution of research that does not have Makerere University within the shadows as a partner. Now that's very, very remarkable. You talk about Yale, Stanford, Michigan, you talk about Arizona State, and many others. We have ongoing Case Western Reserve University, 30 years of relationship with faculty at the School of Biomedical Sciences and the School of Public Health at Makerere University. So those are some of the metrics that really make up an international university, but also to mention the enrollment is important for international students. And the culture that Michael talked about, they must be fully integrated and immersed in the very nature of the culture and the livelihoods of the people within which, because you are building a global citizen, a global student. So international universities are also known by the groundbreaking research that they conduct that transcends the problems and issues within their national borders, or those that even transcend the regions within which. But what is also important, finally, is that an internationally ranked university or revered institution of higher learning must also be able to work with the different governmental and private sector agencies, because that's what build up a global citizen by and large. I cede back to you.
Thank you very much for those insights. Dr. Mwikirize, sorry. This lecture has been organized to celebrate the first beneficiary of the Fulbright scholarship in Africa. I'm sure many of us did not know that. So today we have added on some new information. Now, what else can programs such as the Fulbright scholarship do to build or expand capacity to create international citizens, international universities, especially in light of Makerere positioning itself for the next century? And this question is pertinent given that we have, in light of international cultural differences that Dr. Michael earlier on alluded to. Thank you.
Thank you. And moderator, I think the reason you direct this question to me is because I'm a proud Fulbrighter, as we like to call them. I'm a proud beneficiary of the Fulbright program, having been sponsored to undertake my doctoral studies at Rutgers University, New Jersey, from 2014 to 2019. And I, through you, Your Excellency, I express our appreciation to the great people of the United States for supporting this program. Now, I'm not competent enough to talk about the legacy of Professor Kajivi, but he's a shining light for us. Before most of us applied for this program, it's because we had those stories, those experiences of Fulbrighters who had gone before us, and we had seen their impact in society. So the thing about the Fulbright program is that it changes you. It's like a 180 turn. I think by far the United States has one of the most diverse populations, and this is even more manifest on college campuses. So by the time you come out of that melting pot, you practically understand that you can work with anyone. Whether it's, diverse, race, whether it's creed, whether it's geography, nothing should really stop you. What brings it together is a shared sense of purpose. You desire to move forward. You desire to make a contribution to fellow humans. And that inspires you, and that you carry on forward even when you finish the program. Now, the Fulbright program actually has a home residency requirement, but I'm very sure even if it were not there, many of the scholars would elect to return to their home countries because they want to make a contribution. They want to instill those values that they have learned along the way. And so, what more can be done? Of course, I know Makerere University is benefiting from other programs apart from the Fulbright program. I understand that most of them are predominantly supported by our development partners. But at the risk of Oliver Twist, I would think that if our government could also chip in a little bit, I know like European countries do a bit of this for the Fulbright program, they chip in, and that ensures that more people benefit, because it's a snowball effect. So I wish on our end we could also do more and analyze if we could establish cooperation through frameworks that enable us to send even more students, even more scholars to benefit from these programs. And of course, since the theme is around the next 100 years, I would think that going forward we're going to see less of physical mobility. I think it's probably going to tend more towards blended experiences, because we can get experiences virtually now. Maybe we may have to run the program, God forbid, when there's a pandemic, and we still have to run the program even when there's less chance for physical mobility. So I think leveraging the power of technology on both ends to improve the experience of our scholars, and even when we come back, transferring some of that experience using the power of the technology that we develop or that we acquire to the society in which we live can make a substantial difference. I submit.
Thank you very much. The last question goes to Dr. James Nkata. Uganda has the second youngest population in the world, and most of these youth never get to higher education institutions. Now the question is, how does this conversation move from this room to those youth out there who influence public policy within the country, and especially education sector? Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator. Yeah, it's true. We have the youngest generation in Africa, people below 40 years. And not many of them access higher education. Yet, if you look at the people who are behind policy formulation and the policy implementation, not all of them are university graduates. In fact, the majority of them are people who have never attended any university. Now, from the conversation we are sharing today, this evening, what message do we send to people outside there, especially the younger generation? Let me approach this question from a philosophical point of view. To transform a generation into a productive generation, you have to anchor what you are doing into what you call a national philosophical framework, a national philosophy, which informs the systems and the processes of a country. You must, as a starting point, define what is achievement, so that people can pursue in whatever ways to achieve what has been defined as achievement. Our younger people, we need to go back to the drawing table. You can see some legislators here. Can we go back to the drawing table and redefine achievement in our systems? Right from a kindergarten to a university, what is achievement? So that our younger people start pursuing what is being defined as achievement. I was once a teacher, and I used to ask my students, when you grow up, what do you want to become? I want to become a pilot. I want to become a doctor. I want to become a lawyer. Those are the three professionals. Then I used to ask them, how many aeroplanes do we have in this country? How many hospitals? And how many criminals are you going to represent in the courts of law do we have in this country? Because in our system, we have not defined what achievement is that drives the people to pursue paths to achievement. I don't know when I'm answering your question, madam, but lastly on this point also, in the pursuance of achievement, society, and I mean the government, must put in place very supportive, strong structures that can support younger people to achieve. And as Professor Kakumba said, everybody has a potential and it is my belief, every human being has a potential to be something. Even a madman on the street, if he's taken to hospital and he becomes sane, he can become a president. Because every human being has a potential. Even younger people who have never been in a university, you have potentials. The only problem is how to translate those potentials into productive energies. A country does not need, and I'm sorry to say this, if some of you don't agree with me, do we need stronger institutions or stronger men? Sometimes I disagree with the people saying we need stronger institutions. We first need stronger men. Because stronger institutions don't come from heaven. They are made up by human beings. Professor Senteza Kajubi was a strong man. That's why from his works we built up stronger institutions. To our younger people, let us emulate stronger men. And from their actions, we can build stronger institutions, and all of us can become global citizens.
Thank you very much. Panelists, we are going to have 3 questions from the audience, hopefully one for each of the panelists. May I request somebody to move around with the mic? 1, 2, and 3. Sorry, in the interest of time. Yes, is the
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you very much for the presentation. My name is Enoch Chibuka. I am a PhD student in the College of Education and External Studies, Makerere University. I suspect my question goes to Dr. Michael, or if any of the panelists can answer. Building relevant, effectively functional, and sustainable partnerships between universities surely is the way to go if we are to bolster higher education. But we also know that we are operating in a very tricky theater of geopolitics. How can universities be cushioned against the disorienting dilemmas of geopolitics, so that institutional autonomy and the ability to build these partnerships is achieved? A case in point, in 2018, I think Uganda suffered the pressure from the UN, and the Uganda government was requested to suspend the North Korean professors that we are teaching in some of the Ugandan universities, such as Chambogo University. The Uganda government succumbed to that blackmail. So, how do we cushion ourselves against geopolitics? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My name is Victor Kassirie. I'm a Master of Education, Science Education, Year 1. I have a question to Professor Nkata. How can achievement be redefined in this system? Since the privatization of education in Uganda, I see achievement has changed value and meaning. We are seeing grades that we attach to students after examinations changing meaning, where the grades to the learner imply getting a better job or getting to a better university or a better opportunity, where the grades mean to the proprietor of the institution achieving more clients and more money attached to the grades. So, Professor Nkata, please, please enlighten me about how we can redefine achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, the moderator and the team. My name is Mwembe Ronald. I'm a graduate of Bachelor of Arts with Education, and I was blessed to have studied about Senteza Kajubi in my course called Cooperative Education, and I was too blessed to study about white paper that he initiated. My issue is on I've heard Dr. Michael talking about commitment. And by commitment, I think to be internalized, we need to have inclusive education and other things to make the internalized students. To Professor Nkata, my question goes, how are you ready to push on inclusive education?
Thank you. I would like to allow one more question from a female in the audience. The lady, yes, because all the other questions were from men, and they want to hear the perspective from the women as well.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, and thank you for remembering gender balance. I'm Martha Mwanguzi from the International Office of Makerere. The moderator asked, are universities ready for internationalization? Some of the answers were, we are on the path of internationalization. And in fact, Makerere has gone ahead with internationalization. Just a comment that yes, much as we have, we've already embarked on internationalization, we need to improve. We need to create the infrastructure and the proper structures for internationalization to thrive. What I'm saying is that we have an international office, which is supposed to be the coordinating office for the internationalization efforts in the university. It needs to be strengthened. I don't know if it is happening in Makerere only or even other universities, but international offices need to be strengthened. They should have structures and the proper human resource to run the offices. Maybe in addition to that, it goes to agreements, signing of agreements. We have so many agreements that we've signed with many other institutions. Of course, many universities want to collaborate with Makerere University, but some of them, they are signed. You look at the institution, you even Google on the internet and you read more about it, and you think it is a credible institution. After the 5 years elapse, when there is no activity at all that has taken place. So, if we have the proper structures in place, we will be having committees that would look into all these agreements before they are signed. Of course, the Directorate of Legal Affairs will go ahead and have the agreement signed, but they will not know that the institutions are not credible. Even us, we will not know. That is my comment. Another one before I leave, because it really concerns internationalization. Many of the opportunities that we receive, scholarship opportunities, they go to graduate students, mostly masters and PhD students. And the undergraduate students are always left out. Exchange of students with partner universities is very key, is a very important aspect of internationalization. Having our students going to the other universities. What can we do what can we do, especially when it comes to funding, so that we can have the undergraduate students also going for exchanges? I submit.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid we have to stop in the interest of time. I would allow each panelist to react to those questions quickly. Dr. Ngata, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. The question, how do we define achievement? The definition of achievement comes from the philosophy of a society. It's that philosophy that gives you a definition of achievement. I can give you an example, and excuse me, Her Excellency, the Ambassador of USA. In USA, they have a phrase they usually talk about, and I usually admire it, and I've been in USA, and I've been reading literature about it, the American dream. That's the philosophy of the American society. How to achieve it, they define it. And the definition is within their formation curriculum, right from home to universities. How do you pursue American dream? I think another time we shall invite Her Excellency the Ambassador to tell us about the philosophy. What was behind that philosophical construction by the founders of American dream. Similarly, in this country, we must have a similar Ugandan dream in the form of a national philosophy. The national philosophy defines what kind of society that you desire to exist in Uganda. A literate society, a global thinking society, an innovative society, a very hard-working society. Now, after I have done that, then you say, to be an achiever in Uganda, these are the indicators of achievement. You define them. And those indicators must be enshrined within the formation curriculum of our society, right from nursery upwards. I would like to say in this country, we have that process. It don't need polishing. In my culture, we define achievement for a younger man. You must have a piece of land and a home. So a younger man is grown up being oriented into having a home and having all of us grew pursuing that definition of who a man in this part of Uganda is. Similarly, colleagues, to define achievement, start from the philosophy of society and anchor the definition in that philosophy. When we talk about internationalization, I talked about what we call a global higher education area. And a global higher education area, you have common principles, common philosophy, common values, and common beliefs of higher education. Once you have that, what happens next is harmonization, localization, and compatibility. Unless you have those put on table, we cannot talk about internationalization of higher education. Secondly, what do we do with the political what? Geopolitics. No, that was the last question. Colleagues, with the geopolitics, let me just small comment. Why do we complain about pressures due to geopolitics? It's because we lack what I've just explained. If you are not well rooted into the philosophical roots of your society, you always accept what comes to you without reasoning about it. I don't want to have a belief that when you go to USID, the USID people will impose their ideas onto you. You go for a discussion as a partners. You put on table your arguments. They put on table their arguments. If they have designed an instrument is out for a particular project, you read it and say, do the conditions of this instrument favor us? If they don't, leave it. But this wholesale absorption of whatever comes to us and accept because we lack roots, strong roots. For example, in the US, if something is working against the American dream, you think the Americans will accept it? They will say, no, this is against our philosophical roots. We can't accept it. Thank you.
Yes. Professor Kakumba.
Thanks very much. I think very quickly what is coming up from the audience here, the expressions are that we need internationalization, we need to heavily invest in building that global partnership, because we agree that partnership is important. You cannot work it alone. But it is also true that partnership in the standards of a university that I described as a 21st century university should be mutual, should be reciprocal. And to say that, as institutions of higher learning, as Makerere, as Chambogo, as Soroti, Ndeje, we must invest in internationalization. And that goes without saying, because they are dividends that come out of internationalization, building capacity. Makerere has been able to raise its academic staff, PhD holders, to 75% of the staffing holding PhDs because of these international partnerships. Building human resource capacity. Many trained across the globe, North America, South America, in the Scandinavian, in Asia, Africa, through these partnerships. So there are high dividends that really accrue to investing in where the university can exchange staff. You say we can train for you, we can also provide joint research and publications. And again, investing in internationalization and partnership also means that your ranking and stake will also be raised. Because universities are ranked and highly revered on the basis of how many and how much in terms of research output do you posit out every year, but also how impactful and how much translation of knowledge do you have to your communities? Because those are metrics. And that's why we said that the universities have to tweak their policies to encourage mobility of staff, to encourage having honorary professors, visiting professors, and thanks to the digital technologies, a honorary or visiting professor may not necessarily need to come here and stay for 6 months or 1 year or 2 years. Although I'm aware that the Fulbright has enabled over the years to have faculty, international faculty coming to Makerere to teach, to do research, and many Ugandans have also gone there. But we're also aware that today the utilization of e-learning and digital technologies can enable exchange. We have had summer schools and exchange with the universities in North America, in Europe, having summer schools, having our students participating in competitive online and e-learning summer schools and all of that. So the modalities must also change. But also the policies must allow flexibility. But also the funding model has to be tackled. Martha talked about the structure of the international office. I know international offices have to be supported, but then you must also prepare your faculty and your students, the products. The products must be grounded enough, must be multicultural in appreciation of knowledge, must be able to to learn, must be open to understand the value systems of others, but must also be strategic in appreciating what comes out of internationalization. So you need strong interdisciplinary programs, you need curriculum. As Dr. Akunkata talked about, that's where to invest strongly. You have to invest in curriculum that does not conscript people to simple ideologies of a nation state or simple cultures, but that can allow in contemporary understanding and appreciation of contemporary issues emerging from the global world. And the challenges, talking about climate change, talking about these emerging infectious diseases, because they're global. If Ebola, tropical diseases are here, if the following day somebody will be on the plane and then will go and spread it all over the world. COVID-19 did not begin from here. So handling global problems must be handled in a partnership and collaborative way. And that is where institutions of higher learning and governments and nation states must be able to invest and put their resources to these mobilities, to these joint researches, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Lastly, maybe you speak to the inclusive and maybe undergraduate exchanges, just briefly, because we're about to finish.
Right. So it goes to the heart of the education system, right? Are we still in this notion that we're going to develop curricula where you're pouring from one full vessel into an empty one, that the professor knows better than everyone else, and they're transferring knowledge to them, preparing them for jobs that are presumably out there? Or we're going to look at holding our education system in a space where we're focusing more on preparing people to think so that they can carve out their own path. Now for me, that is where we want to go, and that is at the essence, at the root of internationalization of education, because you're preparing people to be able to fit within the global job market for jobs that don't necessarily exist. And maybe related to that, a very quick one on our value system. Are we preparing people to buy houses and cars and define that as success, and then a better house and a better car? At the root of the American experience, the American dream is meritocracy. You're always guaranteed that if you work hard and you're good at something, you're going to get ahead. And I think that's what we need to infuse into our society.
Thank you very much. I think we shall give Dr. Michael an opportunity to sum it all and conclude this conversation. I want to take this honor to thank my distinguished panelists and you, the audience, for the active participation. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to have the last word. That's an honor in and of itself. I want to thank the panelists and you, Madam Moderator, for the thoughtful conversation in response to my talk. I hope that people walk away asking the questions that you all are asking up on the stage right now. What are we called to do as institutions of higher learning in thinking about the roles we play in solving global challenges and also promoting the common good? There are plenty of other ways to think about what constitutes the common good for you as a university, or for Uganda as a nation, or Kampala as a city, or the districts that you all hail from. And I think one of the things that global education provides, to get back to the gentleman's question about how do we know what to trust and how to process the geopolitics of the world around us, That's a really provocative question. And the education that you receive at Makerere, or if you're not a student and you're teaching, the education you're sharing and disseminating, like Professor Kajubi, that's meant to empower you to be able to discern knowledge, to understand what your place is in the world and what you're called to do as a global citizen. And so it may sometimes be in agreement with the UN and sometimes not in agreement. It may sometimes be in agreement with your administration and sometimes not. But being a global citizen allows you to hear different voices and different perspectives, and that's what's so wonderful and so powerful about the Fulbright Scholarship Program and about the legacy that Dr. Kajubi leaves behind. Because if you imagine yourself somewhere else and you imagine someone else's situation and plight, that empathy should motivate you to be a better problem solver. And so thinking about global education as an opportunity to get to know others, and by knowing others, know yourself better, and then working together to solve problems in the ways that the US and Uganda have, as the ambassador mentioned so eloquently, that's global work. You can never leave Kampala and still be a global citizen. And an education at Makerere prepares you to do that. And being a Fulbright scholar prepares you to do that. So I hope everyone leaves the auditorium today asking, what am I called to do personally to be a global citizen? And what's my call to make this community more global, and how will I reach out to those partners around my community or around the world to help solve these problems together? Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We continue thanking you for being a wonderful audience. We are coming to the end of today's activity. Allow me to recognize some distinguished guests that arrived late, but they are midst us here. Dr. Charles Masaba, my teacher since high school, is now the Vice Chancellor of St. Lawrence University. Doctor, where are you? Oh, nice seeing my teacher. Professor Paul Katamba, Vice Chancellor of Bugema University, is here with us. Professor, welcome, Professor. And we have some audience online. We want to recognize the presence online of Professor Maggie Kigozi, who is the chairperson of Makerere University Endowment Fund. Professor, we recognize your presence online. As I said, we are coming to the end. Michael Rita, for the last bit of the ceremony this evening. Please, just bear with us a few minutes, and we shall be done. Rita?
Yes, thank you very much. Timekeeping, right? Okay. Next, in line with our program, we have gifts. And may I humbly request first the chairperson, Makerere University Council, Mrs. Rana Magara, to come to the stage to perform this task.
As they bring up the gifts, allow me just express our profound gratitude to our speaker, our keynote speaker, Dr. Michael. Thank you very much for challenging us to rethink and reflect on what we consider internationalization of higher education and its impact moving forward in the next century. And thank you very much, very eloquent and well-spoken discussants that left us with more questions than answers, which is a good place to be. If you can stir our thinking and cause us to question where we are and what we've considered as our values. Thank you, Dr. Nkata, for reminding us to raise strong men before we can raise strong institutions. Professor Kakumba, thank you for talking about raising and establishing the strong institutions, policies, and resources to do so. And then Dr. Mwichirize for challenging our current value system and philosophy of education. Please give a round of applause to our great speaker and participants. A very, very special thanks goes to our guest of honor, Her Excellency Natalie, the Ambassador to the United States, to Uganda. Thank you very much for honoring us. She's been here thrice this week. And allow me to say happy birthday. I know it's coming up tomorrow, but we thank you and we are glad that you have honored us. It's a real strong indicator of the relationship that the United States has with not just Makerere University, but with Uganda. So thank you. And in the same vein, first of all, I would like to acknowledge this young man. He's a first-year student. All right, I'd like him to mention his names, and then I'll tell you why I'm spotlighting him here.
Very good evening to you all. My name is Brian Ainaman, a first-year student doing Bachelor's of Arts in Drama and Film.
And he has done a portrait picture of Ambassador Natalie, and I'd like to present it to her. I'd like him to present it to her. May I invite you, Your Excellency, to please come and receive. He would like just to say something as he hands it over to you.
We are who we are because we lie onto the shoulders of our giants, like our dear Ambassador Natalie and also Professor Kajubi. We are making a generation that is different from the rest. That's why we speak different languages through art. I do it professionally with my hands to speak to the world. Though I don't have chance to walk to them, but I can do it with my hand.
Yes, she wants to give you a... That's special. Thank you very much. Thank you, too. Yes, thank you. He has a second one, and this is to our keynote speaker, Dr. Michael. Please to come up and receive you. Thank you. This is really excellent. Thank you. All right. You can hand it over to him. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Michael, you have one more thing from Makerere University. Thank you. Would like to invite Dr. Nkata as well. I've really appreciated your wisdom, Dr. Nkata. Thank you very much for serving us diligently, especially in the education sector. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think that's all. All right, there's some very beautiful art that has been going on to my extreme right. There's a brilliant artist there while the session is going on. I don't know what they call that. What do you call that? Sorry? All right, I wouldn't know. He needs to say it.
Thank you. Yes, let me. Thank you. Yes, my name is Roland Stibirusia. I'm a graduate of School of Art, Makerere School of Industrial Fine Art. So this is a commemorative piece. I usually use portraits to depict what a hero or a legend, like today we are talking about Kajubi. So I painted a portrait and celebrate him, his contribution. Thank you very much.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. And the whole idea is that we sign on it and then it will be handed over to the family.
Yes, so Chair, in that regard, I humbly invite the following people to join you so that you sign. Your Excellency, the Ambassador, U.S. Ambassador to Uganda, the keynote speaker, the Chairperson of Council, Chairperson Mark at 100, Organizing Committee, the representative of the family of Professor Senteza Kajubi, and Professor Professor Anthony Mugaga, Principal, College of Education and External Studies. The rest of us will sign towards the end. For now, let us have time management. Let us have a representative sample. The ambassador of US to Uganda, the keynote speaker, the chairperson, Makerere University Council, the chairperson, Mark at 100 Organizing Committee, the representative of the family of Professor Senteza Kajubi, the Principal, College of Education and External Studies, and the Vice Chancellor of Makerere University, represented by Professor Umar Kakumba. What we are witnessing. May I request the Vice Chancellors present to please remain? We need you in the next photo. Kindly, members, if you spot any Vice Chancellor in the room, kindly remind them that we really need them in the next photo. Thank you so much. That next photo will take only a minute. I humbly appeal to the Vice Chancellors. It is rare to have you in the room in those numbers. So in the same spirit, Chairperson and all the entire team, I'm going to request you to remain here. We are going in for the photo sessions. Your Excellency, the keynote speaker, and the entire team at the stage, I'm requesting you to remain at the stage so that we have a photo moment. And the Vice Chancellors present in the room, I'm also requesting you to warm up because you'll be joining. Let's first have the representative of the family. Okay. You're here, okay. Let's first have that, then I'm going to call another session. The Vice Chancellors, all Vice Chancellors in the room, please get ready. And then I'll also, but now the family, there is Mrs. Honorable Mpanga. I think for the family we will go down to ensure that she's also part of the photo. But for now, is that photo team I need? So may I request the Vice Chancellors in this room physically present kindly join the Ambassador and the Chairperson of Council for this photo. No. Vice Chancellors in the room. Dr. Nkata. No, just a minute. Dr. Nkata and the panelists, kindly join the photo. The moderator and the panelists, kindly join this photo. And then finally. So I'm kindly requesting the Chairperson of Council to lead the team. We have another photo where Honorable Mrs. Mpanga is. Kindly help me capture that photo. To come to the stage, so I request the Chairperson of Council, the representative of the family, and the Ambassador to join Mrs. Honorable Joyce Mpanga in that photo. And to all our yes, and we are coming to the end. So to all our physical participants, thank you for filling up Makerere University Yusuf Lule Central Teaching Facility Auditorium. Thank you for being with us to honor the legacy of Professor Senteza Kajubi, an icon and a personality who contributed tremendously to the development of the education sector in Uganda and worldwide. To the online participants, thank you so much for keeping online, yes, in those numbers. And with that photo, we are coming to the end, and may I request all of us to rise for the anthems. We are going to be led by our able team of staff and students from Makerere University Performing Arts and Film, and they are under the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. And for this particular lecture, we've been hosted by the College of Education and External Studies. Thank you so much.
Makerere, Makerere, we build for the future, the great Makerere. Great, great and mighty, the walls around thee. Great, great and mighty, the gates beside thee. Great, great and mighty, the walls around thee. Great, great and mighty, the gates beside thee. From east and west, from north and south, all voices singing arise, Makerere, rise up and rise, high up and high, all voices singing arise, Makerere, 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 we build for the future, the great Makerere. Great, great and mighty, the walls around thee. Great, great and mighty, the gates beside thee. Great, great and mighty, the walls around thee. Great, great and mighty, the gates beside thee. Do not forget, through all the years, those who have gone through the gates of Makerere. Give them the pride, give them the joy, all to remember the gates of Makerere. Makerere, Makerere, we build for the future, the great Makerere. Great, great and mighty, the walls around thee. Great, great and mighty, the gates beside thee. Great, great and mighty, the walls around thee. Great, great and mighty, the gates beside thee. E Mungu twaomba uilinde Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight over the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. On the locket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that a flag was still there. Oh, say does the star-spangled banner yet wave?
Wow. May I request the rest of us to take our seats so that protocol requires the chief guest to leave first, then the rest of us will follow. May I request the chairperson of council and the vice chancellor represented by Professor Umaru Kakumba and the chairperson Mark at 100 organizing committee to lead the chief guest, Her Excellency the Ambassador of US to Uganda. All the best wishes, and may the good Lord continue to bless you and protect you all.